Howdy, folks. How you doing today? Thanks for joining me on this beautiful day in South Texas for this very valuable podcast on the subject uh, food as medicine, or we should say the ancient Ayurvedic proverb, let food be thy medicine. Now, a lot of people believe this. I mean, many people say, yeah, food has to be medicine. It makes sense. I mean, we're living off of food. Animals go eat, grasses when they're sick. Animals dig up roots when they're not feeling well. And so all through time, people have been having all types of plants to heal themselves. But it's often misunderstood in our modern times what this proverb means. And that's what I really want to focus on explaining today. Because the original proverb, of course, was in Sanskrit. So it's really a matter of the interpretation that is the problem of the original Sanskrit. Because we're interpreting it as food is medicine. But what is the original word? Its meaning is more broad than just food. Food in Ayurveda really means herbs, spices, and what we would call food to feed our body. The only difference is that what we call food is a little sweet, it's palatable, it's not too bitter, it's not too pungent, it's not repulsive, doesn't make you throw up, and you don't, it's not poisonous. And that's what we call food. It's like nutritional. It's good. I mean, we eat romaine lettuce because it's sweet and tasty, but we don't eat just every single grass out there growing. Unfortunately, there's dandelion growing out there and people don't eat it because it's bitter. But we know dandelion is a wonderful herb. See, so in Ayurveda, there's no distinction between spices, cumin, coriander, ginger, fennel, thyme, rosemary, sage, etc., and herbs. There's thousands and thousands of herbs. Every culture, South America has thousands of herbs. Chinese have thousands of herbs. Indians have thousands of herbs. There's just millions of plants all over the world. And even one plant can have 3 or 4 different herbs on it. You could have the leaves, you could have the mushrooms. I mean, the leaves, the bark, and the stem and the root. I mean, there's different parts can be used and have different effects. So even the same plant can have so-called different herbs. I mean, you could be having the stem of a plant and have one effect. You could have a root of a plant like dandelion root and have another effect. You could have dandelion leaf and have a slightly different effect. But first thing we have to accept is that when we talk about food as medicine, it's including spices and herbs. And this is where people make a mistake because they think, okay, I've got cancer, I'm going to heal myself with food. Then they do smoothies and juicing and eat better. And unfortunately, that's just not enough to reverse a serious health condition, particularly like a cancerous tumor that's now spreading all over your body. Food, what we call food, is not going to be enough. And this is where people fall short when they do self-treatment because they believe that just these, foods, eating well, smoothies, juicing is sufficient. But you're eating only a small portion of what Ayurveda would call food. You're only having the tasty ones. And these are not the strong ones that are going to kill cancer cells or clean out your liver or, remove your arthritis and some foods, like we could say bitter melon, they go both ways. Here, I think I got a tea here. Oh, let's thank our sponsor, herbmanteas.com, who's paying the bills here for this podcast and helping me out in other ways. Look at this tea, blood sugar tea by Herman Teas, lowers blood sugars. But look at the first ingredient is bitter melon. Now, bitter melon is a plant. I mean, people eat it. You can cook it. Gymnea sylvestre is kind of bitter and people don't eat it. But cinnamon, people use all the time. Fenugreek, people use all the time. So, here we're just using bitter melon dried. You can see it in there. Those round things, that's the bitter melon up there. They are very bitter. But people know how to cook it properly. Indians know how to cook it properly, and it can be quite tasty. But you can see here we're using a food as medicine, bitter melon. But all herbs are medicine. For example, we may think about, oh, we want to grow our hair. Well, we could have the best thing to grow hair, of course, in Ayurveda and many traditions is dairy, milk, cheese, and butter. So those we could call food. But what about these plants? Now, many of them, stinging nettle, you can cook and eat stinging nettle. Oat straw you can have. Rosemary is a spice, is kind of more not helping you grow hair, but just keeping the circulation good. And hibiscus too. And horsetail we know is packed with nutrients, particularly minerals and vitamin, calcium and minerals. And stinging nettle is probably one of the most nutritious herbs on the planet, which you can cook. It's just you have to steam it and it's hard to pick because it's stinging. So and of course these herbs are high in silicone and iron as well, and they help your nail growth and bone growth. So here again, we see the division between food and herbs there is no division. The difference is most of the herbs just don't taste good. But these are the ones that you want because they have the therapeutic value. You can't just eat the tasty foods and think you're going to even lose weight, even detox the liver. If you want to manage your blood sugar, all the herbs and the food should be bitter. And the last taste you want is sweet. You don't want sweet herbs and you don't want sweet foods to manage your blood sugar. So there's many examples of this where, the division between food and herbs is not very clear. Sometimes these foods can be used as herbs, and herbs prepared in the proper manner can be used as food. So if we still think of the Western division, okay, food, herbs, and spice, we know now that the proverb, let food as your medicine, means use all of them. Use the spices, use the herbs, and use the food. But for conversation purposes, we'll still divide them up. What is the difference? Well, spice generally is the tastiest of all of this category. They're even tastier than food. I mean, fennel, coriander, cumin. I mean, it tastes better than most foods, except maybe fruits, because they have a nice flavor. So these are really the best for taste, and they're helping with digestion. It's the spices, but they're not going to reverse many health conditions. Not going to take your health condition backwards. You're not going to reverse your kidney failure with spices. You're going to be having the herbs to reverse. And the food is really, unless you have a degenerative condition like degenerative bones, falling out hair, weakness, fatigue, low body fat, low muscle, low strength, dehydration, all of these type of degenerative conditions. Well, then food is what we call food, the yummy stuff, is going to be part of your medicine because you're degenerative. You have weak bones and your hair's falling out. So just herbs isn't enough. You're going to have to eat like milk and dairy and more protein and more fat, as well as to just take some herbs. See, when you have a degenerative condition, like you're depleted, the last thing you want to do is, of course, fasting, skipping meals, living off of smoothies and things like that, because you need to build the body, strengthen the body. So you're using that food as medicine. But most conditions, like say you have cholesterol, you may have to change the diet because maybe that's how you got the high cholesterol. The bad cholesterol is through, junk food, fast food, fried foods, etc., bad fats. And now to reverse it and get those numbers down, well, of course, you have to change your old habits. You can't be going out to fast food and junk food anymore if you already had high cholesterol. But it's going to be a slow process to reverse it just by changing your diet. You need the herbs, the things that are not so tasty, to reverse it. Excuse me. And here, see, we have you have a tea here by our sponsor, Urban Tea's cholesterol tea. And see, what it's going to do is improve the liver function. And it's going to help you to reverse the condition. And of course, motherwort's great for the cardiovascular system. Tulsi and moringa are both hot heating herbs that help reduce fats. Same as lemon peel, just like all citrus, helps you lower fat in the body. And then the rest of the herbs, the fenugreek, the turmeric, the ginger, the cinnamon, are just warming herbs. But altogether, this helps to improve, particularly that dandelion, helps to improve your liver function, your breakdown of fat, and helps reverse the condition. So you have to understand that. If you're trying to fix an organ that's clogged, like your gallbladder, your liver, your colon, kidney stones, then, obviously you want to avoid the foods that are making it worse, but stopping those foods will not reverse the condition, at least not quickly. So say you stopped all of your fried food, bad fat habits, you give it 6 months or a year, and you're going to find that your numbers get better and your cholesterol gets numbers improved. But when you take the herbs, you can do it very fast. So the herbs are reversing the condition because the herbal formulas have actions, stimulating the liver, cleaning the liver, improving the kidney function, dissolving kidney stones, etc. Or in this case, Isaac tea, also from our sponsor, urbanteas.com. You can, this is made not just to boost your immunity, but if you're familiar with this Isaac tea, and this is my own version, that's why I call it plus. This formula is made to kill cancer cells. And guess what? It tastes terrible. I mean, you've ever had wormwood? It tastes terrible. Sheep shoro, which is a very strong anti-cancer herb known to kill cancer cells, it tastes terrible. I mean, basically, the tea is terrible tasting. Even when I sell it online on our website, it says, warning, the tea tastes bad. But what can you expect? You're trying to kill cancer cells. You think the tea is going to taste good? No. You probably got your cancer from eating too many sweet food, cookies, candy, and, tasty foods. So just like with high blood sugar, you're going to get bitter herbs to reverse that and to drop the blood sugar in your body and to stimulate your pancreas, stimulate your digestion, stimulate your liver. It's the bitter herbs. This, old saying that says, take your bitter medicine. That's what we're talking about here. Herbs are bitter, but they have actions, but you don't need to take them forever. You're not taking that tea to become strong and, have muscles. You're taking that tea, the acai tea, to kill cancer cells. That's its purpose. What food is going to do that? You don't have tasty, sweet, yummy foods that are going to do that. Nothing you put in your blender, your juicing, your smoothie is going to do much to kill cancer cells, with maybe the exception of moringa, but which has only recently become popular. And there are some mushrooms that help with immunity too, but most people are not taking them correctly. I've brought this up before in a past podcast, is that, mushrooms are now a current fad. And, but I will say, when you're shopping for mushrooms, first of all, I would only buy mushrooms from a Chinese person, Chinese herbalist. I wouldn't buy mushrooms from me. Now, if you notice on Urban Teas, I'm using reishi mushrooms, cordyceps mushrooms, but, limited, like my heart tonic. I have reishi mushrooms. I have a drinker's tea to detoxify the liver. I use reishi mushroom. I'm probably going to put a little reishi in my brain tea. Mushrooms are like the icing on the cake. You don't mix 5-6 mushrooms together and then have it with coffee and call it some type of adaptogen drink. Come on. Nobody mixes 5 or 6. Just one mushroom is enough. And usually they're like not taken by themselves. I lived in Taiwan for 4 or 5 years, and I had a lot of mushrooms. I never saw them in powder form. And I would never buy mushrooms in powder form. When I had them in Taiwan, where I studied Chinese medicine, we had them in wine. And of course, if you go to any Chinese doctor, even today, they're going to give you a big sack of herbs and big chunks all kind of chopped up, and you got to boil them decoction style and drink it 3 or 4 times a day. This is a typical Chinese medicine treatment. The herbalist, he throws in different herbs for all different conditions, puts it in a big bag. You buy the bag, you go home, you boil it in the morning, then you drink the tea during the day. Of course, there can be more sophistication to that, but that's the gist of it. But the mushrooms are always big chunks. You can see them in there. They're not in powder form, because anybody buying herbs doesn't like to buy it in powder form unless you're, like Ayurvedic herbs, you're using them in powder form. Particularly something like mushrooms, where there can be a lot of adulteration and there can be impurities. And it could, you want to see the mushroom. Then you can taste the mushroom and you can see, well, that's reishi, that's cordyceps, that's lion's mane. I can see it. It's not just like I got some powder and I don't know what I got. Or you mixing 5 mushrooms together and you for sure have no idea what you're doing. You don't even know what percent of each mushroom. Furthermore, while we're on this, I digress, but anyway, I'm on this mushroom side subject here. Somebody was asking me about it the other day. And basically, when you buy mushrooms, you don't want here's a few things you look for. Better just buy them whole. Or in a tea like in mine, where you can see the chunks of reishi mushroom in there. You could tell I didn't put in 50% reishi mushroom. You could tell it's only 10% because you can see not a lot of chunks, because reishi mushroom is expensive, particularly if you're buying certified organic, because we got to be very careful taking these reishi out of China because we can't really trust whether they're organic. So that's why I like to get my reishi out of Canada, where I think there's more reliability in the testing and things like that. So I'm getting my reishi mushrooms out of Canada, not out of China. Now, your little reishi mushroom package you're buying on social media, who knows where that comes from? I doubt it's even organic, not alone tested. And of course, all cheap herbs will come from China, and it won't be organic. But that's why quality is the name of the game, not just, I'm taking reishi mushrooms. The question is, what's the quality, how fresh it is, how pure it is. But again, of course, mushrooms have different parts. They have the mycelium, which is kind of like its root. They have the stem and they have the top. They call it like the flowering top. Now, of course, when I buy mushrooms, I only want the flowering top. I don't want the stem. And for sure, I don't want this mycelium root. But if you look at these products that people are selling online, it always says with mycelium. And this is what you don't want, because they grow it on rice and grains, and some of that's getting mixed in with it. And that's one reason they want to powder it, because they want to just throw the whole thing in and powder it. They don't want to just take the expensive part off the top, which is really all you want. You don't want the stem. You don't want the mycelium. You don't want some of the fragments of the rice that it's been growing on. But they don't. They just take the whole thing out, mycelium, which are like its roots, the stem, the top, the whole thing, and dry it and put it into a powder. So you're not even getting pure mushroom tops, which is all you really want. And even I've noticed, I was reading about some mushrooms, and they even say has mycelium, like it's some kind of good thing. Well, that's not what you want. You don't want the mycelium. And we don't know what percent is mycelium. Maybe these people, obviously, they know about mushrooms. They're growing them. So maybe they're taking the tops off, drying them, selling them to me and the people who know what they're doing. Then they're getting the stems and the mycelium and drying them and grinding them up and just selling them in the open market and calling it, reishi or cordyceps or whatever lion's mane, whatever mushroom they're selling. So buying mushrooms on the open market in powder form, I would not do it. It's a big fad now, and I have to take people off of mushrooms. There's many counterindications to mushrooms, including most autoimmune conditions, etc. So if you don't know what you're doing, don't be taking mushrooms. I digress, and I go back to using food as medicine. But mushrooms is a good example, because we can eat shiitake mushrooms, and they also have health benefits. So you can see there's really no division between food and herbs, except the food tastes better and the spices taste even better. It's all a matter of tasting good. So maybe only a very small fraction of our plants and seeds are so tasty we use them as spices. And then a little bit larger, but still a very small fraction of all the plants on the planet are used for food. And obviously, they're the tasty ones that taste good, and fill us up and don't make us have diarrhea and vomit and feel like we had poison. I mean, that's why we're growing them. That's why we're eating them. That's why we're living off them, because they're nutritiously sound. They taste fairly good. Rice and bread are considered sweet by nature. They're not bitter. They're not sour. They're sweet. So, generally food is sweet. Herbs tend to be bitter, and spices tend to be more like pungent or warming, like cumin, coriander, ginger, black pepper, etc. They tend to be warming, and they're helping your digestion. So let me give you a few more examples of this blur between food and herbs. Here's a good example, a product by, again, Hermantes. This is a building nutritional superfood for depletion, weakness, and low stamina. Basically a Vata person. But look, I've mixed what we would call food with herbs together. There's no distinction to me. Wheatgrass, truly like a superfood. I mean, super nutritious. Dasha Mula actually is 10 herbs. Dasha Mula, Mula means roots, and Dasha means 10. But basically, this is a very nutritional formula, Dasha Mula. Moringa, we talked about that earlier, used as an herb, also can be used as a food. Spirulina is, of course, super nutritious. We would call it more of a food than an herb, but, it's a big, it's a blurry line. And then we got ashwagandha in there, and we got beetroot powder in there, and cumin, cinnamon, ginger, and some kelp and licorice. So you can see basically there's foods, there's herbs, there's spices all mixed together in one nutritional superfood. There's no point to be taking these little tiny vitamins. I think people, how are you going to grow your bones, grow your muscles from taking little types of vitamins? Vitamin supplementation is really deceiving. You're thinking you're taking a little tiny calcium every day and you're going to grow your bones, your nails are going to become stronger. I see people all the time, and I said, oh, your nails are weak. That means your bones are degenerative. Your nails are splitting. That means your bones are weak. Your hair's falling out. That's the type of mineral deficiency. And, the doctor told you have low bone density. Oh, see, there you go. But I'm taking calcium every day. Well, that little calcium is a synthetic vitamin made in a lab. You better off to just be having food, that's building for your bones. And of course, as we mentioned, mostly that's dairy, cheese, butter, milk, if you can digest it. So, that's another subject, but getting all your vitamins from synthetic vitamins, it's not a good idea. You need to be using food. And some herbs like moringa or nettle are kind of quasi-food, but they're more used as herbs, but they can be very beneficial also as food because of their nutritional balance. So these are further examples I'm going to show you here of how food and medicine works together. I know a lot of women, they're taking hormonal replacement therapy. And then they say, well, they don't want to have to take this for the rest of your life, because that's what you have to do. Once you start on hormone replacement therapy, even melatonin is a type of hormone replacement therapy. Once you start on that, you're going to become dependent. Now, unless you've had a hysterectomy and you don't have a reproductive system and you just can't make any more hormones at all, your body should still be able to make some hormones right up until its last day. A man won't make as much testosterone on his last day, and a woman won't be making as much estrogen as she did when her childbearing days, but she will still be making it. And with herbs, we don't replace the estrogen. We help support the reproductive system to make the estrogen, to make the progesterone, to make the testosterone, to help your body function properly. And this is a perfect example of it right here. This female balance tea. It's really female hormonal balancing tea, but when we had the word hormonal on it, it just kept getting banned everywhere. So we had to take it off. helps people balance estrogen, progesterone, mostly for women, and adrenal hormones. And we can see Shatavari is a phytoestrogen. It's like a precursor to making estrogen. So is red clover. And spearmint is more for the flavor. And spearmint also is known to reduce testosterone a little bit. And ashwagandha is more for the adrenals. Dong Quai, black cohosh, these are, of course, the key ones for helping a woman to balance her hormones. These have been used for thousands of years, particularly Dong Quai, Angelica. And Daminia is actually an aphrodisiac. Licorice is just another adaptogen, which helps all the herbs work better. And fennel is a little cooling and sweet because the female reproductive system needs to be cooling and sweet. Too much heat is a problem, and it just makes it taste good. So you can see, again, we're mixing the herbs with some spices, and some of those things like shatavari, you can eat it. It's just the root of the asparagus. I mean, technically you could eat it. It's very nutritional. So there's no division between the two. And here we're helping. Many women have benefited from that. Same with the hot flash tea. Their hot flashes go away. Their hormonal balance improves. But is there technically estrogen in those? No. So that is a good point. Well, I had the female one up. There's the male one. We don't put testosterone in the tea. We just have herbs like yohimbe that are high in testosterone, and stimulants like ginseng and ashwagandha and daminia, which was in the other one. So this is a very stimulating that helps a man increase testosterone. It's a natural way to do it. You don't want to be taking the testosterone in externally, then you're just going to be poor at making it. You become dependent. So you want to help your reproductive system to make it. Now, some foods do have phytoestrogens in it, like soy, and some foods do have natural testosterone precursors that help you to build more. So that's why the proper treatment should be a combination of foods, say for building bones, dairy, and calcium rich and mineral rich foods like dairy, and some dark leafy greens, and then the herbs. But remember, the herbs are more specific. And that's another reason why we in Ayurveda, they call herbs food, because what are you treating with the herbs? You're treating an organ and a system in the body. Say you got a case of multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, where we know the myelin sheath is damaged. So we could say there's nerve damage. So what is your goal? You're not treating Parkinson's. You're not treating multiple sclerosis. You're trying to recover and rebuild the nerve tissue, particularly the myelin sheath. So we know the myelin sheath is made of fat and oil. So we generally increase the oil, the fat, the butter in the diet because that's the main ingredient the sheath is made of. But there's many herbs known to help to restore that nerves, including oat straw, and then of course we have lion's mane, the new popular one for nerve damage. But again, you could eat lion's mane. I've had it for breakfast with my omelet, and it's quite tasty. And even though I don't have nerve damage, it still has benefits. But what are we doing? And I got this from one of my teachers in India decades ago. He says, you're feeding the nerves. These herbs are food for your nerves. Just like if you do bitter greens like dandelion, burdock root, you can think of it as food for your liver. So it's still food. It's just not the tasty food that's going to build muscles and maybe give you a lot of energy. I mean, you eat a lot of dandelion greens, you're probably not going to have a lot of energy, but your liver's going to love it. So and if you just try to live off of, a mushroom, it could be have a hard time. But say you're having a lot of lion's mane, your nerves are going to do it. What you're doing is you're feeding the nerves. You're feeding the liver. Just like if you have a high protein diet, a lot of animal protein and protein powders, what are you feeding? You're feeding your muscles. Now, of course, if you have too much protein, then you can start feeding growths, tumors, cysts, and that. So you don't want too much protein. So if you're low in blood sugar and you're having sweet fruit, you're feeding your blood. Okay, so think of these herbs as feeding organs in the body. So that's how they're like food for your liver, food for your blood, food for your nerves, food for your brain. Many herbs are just good for the brain. We have a Brahmi Rasyana, for example, is made for people with like brain damage, concussions, and things like that. But Rasyana means restorative. So Brahmi, of course, is the herb. Brahmi Adi. Adi means some other herbs are in it. Rasyana means it's a building formula. It's not going to be dry. It's going to be with powders, not with powders, but it's going to be with ghee and honey and juices of fruit. So it's going to be a building for the brain cells. But basically, we could say it's food for the brain. So if you have a concussion, I'm giving you food for your brain to grow. Now, you couldn't live off of it. It's not going to feed your whole body. It's not going to give you enough energy to go throughout the day, but it's going to be food for your brain. So herbs we could divide in two categories, so like Shodhana Chikitsa, which just mean cleansing and depleting. And then you have Rasyana Chikitsa, which is building. So mostly we've been talking using food and herbs as building, but herbs also have the cleansing properties, and most food doesn't have this. I mean, okay, if you're constipated, you could have a lot of blueberries and strawberries and grapes, and these are mildly laxatives, but they're never going to be as powerful as rhubarb, senna, and carsata sagrada, and these strong laxatives. So even though they don't taste good, you don't need a lot, and they have a powerful action. So we're using herbs not just as food for medicine, food for the organ, but we're using them to, treat the organ or the system, to improve the flow of blood, to clean the arteries, to relax the heart muscles, and ultimately, in those three actions, lower the blood pressure. So these herbs all have actions. We don't treat your blood pressure. We put herbs that help relax the heart muscles. We have herbs that help with the circulation. We have herbs that reduce down the inflammation, and we have herbs that will clean the arteries. And of course, there's many types of high blood pressure, but you can see it takes a whole group of herbs, to treat a condition. Just drinking hibiscus tea is not a real, maybe a preventive treatment for high blood pressure, but it's not going to bring it down. It tastes too good. The herbs that are going to make a big action generally don't taste good. The worse the condition, the worse tasting the herbs come. The stronger the herbs, the worse they're going to taste. Just like I brought the example of Isaic tea, which is, made to boost the immunity and kill cancer cells. Well, it's probably the worst tasting tea we have. But blood sugar tea is extremely bitter too and terrible tasting. So it's these not tasty herbs that really have the power. Your bitter herbs. So once again, herbs, spice, food, they're all together. Food is what we call food is to build and strengthen the body. And the herbs are for actions and taken in smaller doses. We can't sustain ourselves on them. We can't live off of these herbs, but they will maybe be feeding our nerves, maybe be feeding our brain, maybe be feeding our liver, maybe be feeding our bones, because that's what we're trying to do. We're using herbs as food for organs in the body, and we're using herbs to treat different parts of our body. So don't think you can get out of your health issues, particularly serious health issues like cancer, by just having smoothies and changing your diet. That will prevent it from getting worse. Okay, say you were eating a lot of chemicals and now you've gone organic. Okay, so you're not putting more chemicals in your body, but what's getting all those chemicals out? You need the herbs to do that. So you really, to reverse conditions, you need the herbal medicine. To prevent the conditions, like I'm taking care of almost 50 animals on my ranch, it's all nutrition, making sure they got the nutrition, all prevention. And that's always the best way to go is prevention. But unfortunately, in our society, we wait until the health issue comes, and then we delay until it's bad. and then we do the ER trip, and then we get serious. So at that point, these advanced stages, or we found out the medical world can't treat it. So of course we are under this impression that these conditions are untreatable, but they are treatable. But it maybe took you a few years to research, and then and discover, hey, this is treatable. People have treated this condition. Now you have to find somebody with the knowledge, somebody with the skill. A couple more years pass by until you come into me or another advanced herbalist, and now meanwhile the pathology it continued for your condition and has actually gotten worse. So really, prevention's the name of the game, particularly for animals. We just try to, give them good nutrition. And I still give my animals herbs all the time, because see my horse back there, I've given him a lot of herbs, particularly when he catches the cold or a flu or he's been constipated and stuff. So we just give him herbs, and the animals, they willingly accept them. They don't complain. They kind of have an intuitive sense that this bad tasting substance I put in their food is good for them. They have that intuitive knowledge. They're not thinking too much. They have trust in me. They have trust in nature. They have faith. And this is how they survive. Just like an animal, like a deer in the wild, in the springtime, they'll dig up the roots and start eating the roots, and this cleanses them out. So these animals are doing spring detoxes every spring, and nobody's having to tell them how valuable it is. But of course, they're living off the land, so they're only getting these new sprouts and roots. So, that's what they have to use to survive. They're not able to eat foods out of season like we can. And that's one reason they maintain their health. But anyway, I hope you understand the main gist of what I was teaching here today is that when we think of food as medicine, we're including spices, herbal remedies, and food. And you really need to apply all three. And you can see, if anybody, you or my patients, you can see I talk about spices to improve your digestion. I change your whole diet, and I'm trying to usually strengthen certain tissue or organs in the body with the diet. And then I'm leaving out certain foods that are making your condition worse, which you have to have the knowledge of. And it's not based on nutritional science like antioxidants and vitamin C. This will all confuse you if you think in those terms. Herbalists do not think in nutritional terms. If you see an herbalist and he says, oh, this herb has a lot of antioxidants, well, he's not herbalist. That's a nutritionist. Now, sometimes we say, okay, nettle has a lot of vitamins and iron, but that's just so people can understand it. But we don't put it in there for that purpose, because we have to know how these herbs work, and we're not using nutrition as the guideline. But it's another subject. I think I could do a podcast on that subject. Actually, it's a good idea to talk about the limitations of nutrition. And don't depend on taking supplements to treat your condition, because those are nutritional supplements, most of which you're buying are synthetic. They're not even organic. And two, you're going to reverse the condition. You're going to need some probably bad tasting herbal medicine. It's not going to taste good. It's not going to be a little tiny capsule. You're going to have to consume larger amounts of herbs to reverse the condition you have. So first step is stop the habit that created it. Like, okay, say you have alcoholic liver. Well, you got to stop the drinking. But then what's going to improve that liver function? Well, no medication can do that. And even just changing your diet isn't going to do that. But herbs can do that. They can take cirrhosis of the liver and improve it. They can take fatty liver and reverse it. So you need the herbs for the reversal process. But you still need the food to keep yourself going. And you definitely don't want to be doing things that will make that condition worse. So that's all I'm doing with the diet. Just kind of keeping your dosha balanced, not making any new health problems, keeping you alive, keeping you going with a bunch of nutritional, from a nutritional point of view, the fat, carbohydrates, protein, all have fiber, all should be, suitable for you. And so you can keep going and take away anything that could aggravate your condition, make it worse, just like tomato sauces will make high blood pressure higher, fried foods will make your liver worse, and alcohol will make your alcoholic liver worse. All those have to be removed. but it's the herbs doing the heavy lifting that's reversing it back, which is why you only have to take them for a certain period of time. It may be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, but they are doing the job to reverse your condition. So if you're one of my patients and your condition is not completely resolved, don't stop the herbs halfway just because you don't have symptoms anymore. You got to keep going until that condition or that tissue or that organ or that system is working 100% properly. And unfortunately, I see a lot of my clients, their symptoms go away, no more chest pain, so they stop the heart herbs, but doesn't mean their blood pressure is under control. They stop the blood sugar herbs because they taste bad, but then the blood sugar creeps back up again because the pancreas and the insulin resistance process hasn't been resolved. A lot of clients stop the herbs too soon, and then you're not fully reversing the condition, and then you have the probability of that condition coming back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I wish you the best. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm going to go take care of my garden, check on my chickens, my horse, I don't have any goats anymore. I got doves. I got ducks and cats and my dog, and so some kittens. So I'm going to go take care of all of them, but particularly I want to go work on my garden a little bit. So I'm going to let you go. I wish you all the best of health and happiness. And don't forget, you should subscribe to the podcast. So you're watching the live version, but you should subscribe to it. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you the best of health and happiness. God bless you all.